Hey friends, good morning or good evening whenever you are watching this video. But right now I'm making this at 6:30 in the morning. The sun hasn't fully came up yet. I don't know if you can see outside right now, but the sun hasn't even fully came up yet. But I was like, let me go ahead and get in this kitchen and make dinner now because I have a lot of crazy stuff going on in the household today. And I'm also going to be working. I'm hybrid today too. So I wanted to show you what all I'm going to be cooking, which will be a rack of ribs. These are baby back ribs that I got on sale at our local store, Jewel Osco, which is Albertsons in some areas of the US. But they were on sale and I was like, you know what? I'm going to freeze these and when I'm ready to eat them, I'll have them. So I have defrosted them overnight. They're ready for me to bake in the oven. So these will be baked. I will not be outdoors grilling today, even though the weather is going to be a little bit better today. But I'm going to be using the oven to bake these. I have a rib rub recipe on my website. It's Oklahoma Joe's rib rub. It's a kind of famous recipe rib rub or a famous recipe for a rib rub. And I am going to be using that as well as my favorite Spanglish Asadero rib. Actually, it's a barbecue rib rub too, but you can put it on anything. So I'm going to be using both of those as well as some apple juice. A lot of times when I'm baking ribs, I do like to just put it in the oven, spray it with apple juice, but this time I'm going to be baking it in the apple juice and it just gives it way more flavor. So you all get to see what I'm doing in the kitchen today. And I'll see you guys on the other side. All right, friends. So what I have here inside of my seasoning shaker is some granulated sugar. It's about 2 tablespoons of that. I have 1 tablespoon of brown sugar. And then I have some garlic powder, some chili powder, some smoked paprika, and some ground cumin. And that's about 1.5 teaspoons each. Also, I have some salt, onion powder, white pepper, as well as some black pepper. And that's 1 teaspoon each. All of that is inside this shaker. And I'm just going to sprinkle it on both sides of the ribs. As you notice, I've already removed that membrane and I also added some yellow mustard on there to just use as a binder. It's not necessary, but I like to use it as a binder. Now that I have all of those seasonings on there, I'm going to top that off with the Spanglish Asadero, which is the Mexican barbecue flavor. And it has some chipotle seasonings in there. So I'm just going to top that off just a little bit on each side and rub that in. I have the oven preheating to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. So while that's happening, I'm going to add my ribs into this baking dish. And the next thing I'm going to be doing is adding some apple juice to it. So I'm pouring in 2 cups. I'm going to cover the pan and just let this cook for 2 hours. But in between that time, about 1.5 hours, I'm going to take it out and pour the remaining juices on top of the ribs and let that bake and then add my barbecue sauce to it. Well, the sun is finally starting to come up. I am chopping up some potatoes and this is going to be kind of like a smothered potato, but not exactly. It's more like sauteed. And I'm going to be adding some scallops as well as some minced garlic and a few seasonings, like an all-purpose seasoning, just to give it some flavor. And this is really nice because we eat a lot of potatoes in this household and you kind of want to like mix it up a little bit. So what I'm going to be doing is adding some spinach to this. I don't have any fresh spinach, so I'm going to be using some frozen spinach for this. And if you notice, I am not removing the skin from the potatoes. I like the skin on it. Depends on what type of potatoes that I'm making. But like, even if I have mashed potatoes, I like having some of the skin inside of the mashed potatoes too, especially if it's a red or a yellow potato that I'm using. I like to have some of the skin in there. So I'm almost done with these. I'm gonna rinse them off and get them into a pan with some butter and some shallots and some minced garlic. So I'm gonna rinse these off really quickly before I add them to that skillet. Okay friends, so in this pan I have some butter and I'm adding some olive oil just to keep the butter from burning. And I'm gonna add some minced garlic. I use the minced garlic that's in the jar. I could use like some fresh garlic, but I do not have that. And usually doesn't last too long here. Like it gets, you know, kind of spoiled. So I'll be using the minced garlic from the jar. Now that I have the minced garlic in there, I've added some shallots that I had diced up. It's just a little bit because if you follow my page, you'll know that the hubby doesn't eat onions. So I have just a little bit of shallots in there just to give it some more flavor. And I have the potatoes sitting to the side that you saw me rinse off earlier. I'm just going to add those to the pan. I am cooking this on a medium-low heat, and I'm going to let these potatoes simmer covered with a top. I'm going to let them simmer for about 15 minutes. But before doing that, I will be adding a couple of seasonings to this. So I have the Dano, so you can use any type of all-purpose seasoning, as well as some chili powder. And I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of that on top of the potatoes, and then that's when I'm going to cover them up. So again, just simmer this for about 15 minutes. And in between that time, because these are the yellow potatoes, they really don't take long to cook at all. So you want to just make sure that they're not browning too much, and just check in between time. So like maybe after 7 minutes, stir them up a little bit and then cover them back up and just let them continue to simmer. Now that these have simmered for 15 minutes, I'm adding some frozen spinach to this. Now, if you have some fresh spinach on hand, of course you can add that to the potatoes, but I'm just going to be adding this frozen spinach. I have like a couple of handfuls of spinach that I'm adding. I don't want to add too much spinach because, you know, I still want to taste the potato part to this too. So I've let that simmer, and I'm going to be adding some Parmesan cheese, so like the grated Parmesan cheese, as well as some red pepper flakes, some crushed red pepper flakes. If you don't like heat, you do not need to add the crushed red pepper flakes, but I'll be adding that to this. So yeah, so approximately like a full 20 to 25 minutes, this dish is done. And it's one of my favorites, especially, you know, like I said, we eat a lot of potatoes in the household, so, you know, I try to mix it up a little bit, and this is just one way that I do it. The garlic and the butter really gives it a lot of flavor, and of course, you know, adding the all-purpose seasoning and that chili powder really sets off the flavor to this. So we're almost done, and the last thing I'm going to be doing is checking on the baby back ribs. So this is how they look after an hour and a half of baking in the oven. So I have poured off some of the apple juice that was in there, and I'm going to add these ribs like directly into the dish. And I pour the apple juice like on top of the ribs. And then I'm going to just top this with some barbecue sauce. So I'm using the Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce. Of course, use your favorite barbecue sauce. Add that on there. And basically, you're just going to baste that sauce on top of the ribs and let it cook in the oven for another 20 minutes just to get like a nice coating of the barbecue sauce on top of that. And I'm going to leave them uncovered while I'm baking it with this sauce. So You just want to make sure that you're getting like a nice coating of barbecue sauce on there. And then once you bake it, when you put it back in the oven, make sure that the heat is turned up to like 400 degrees Fahrenheit at this point, so that the sauce has a nice coating on top. So yeah, this is my ribs. This is how they look after baking them. And yeah, it's a very simple recipe. And again, I'll have this on my website at plussizeinchicago.com, where you can just look up baby back ribs or look up rib rub, and the recipe will pop up for you. So friends, I hope you liked what I cooked in the kitchen today. If you are a follower of any of my accounts, thank you so much for coming back. If you're new here, my name is Angela and this is my account, plussizeinchicago.com. Be sure to subscribe or follow me. Also leave a comment and share this video with your friends and family. I'll see you guys next time.